Are you looking for all the latest pro football news and content? Of course you are. Who doesn't love football? The question is, how do you get all the latest pro football news and content? There's so many different pro football podcasts on the internet. Which one do you choose? Which one is the right fit for you? Well, you go with the Cross the Middle Show, one of the fastest growing football podcasts out right now. Over the past year, we've climbed the Spotify rankings and become a must listen to if you're a football fan. Find out if the Ravens will go all the way with Odell Beckham Jr. Find out if the Eagles did enough to make it back to the Super Bowl. You'll get all of our best stories for just $1 per month. All you have to do is sign up by clicking the link in the episode description box. So we're at it again on the Cross the Middle Show. I'm your host, John Kuzma. We got the Jalen Hurts story today. We're going to start with that one. Do you guys have a problem with Jalen Hurts running so much? So Jalen Hurts put up a ton of touchdowns, and he runs the football a lot in the red zone to the point where we have to ask the question, should the Eagles be concerned with how much Jalen Hurts is running? Personally, I am not concerned at all because I've done a past episode about how strong Jalen Hurts' legs are. I mean, this guy is running through tackles. He's not just breaking tackles, he's running through tackles. So that kind of tells you how strong Jalen Hurts' legs are. I mean, the guy can just break tackles over and over and over again. We saw it in the Super Bowl. We saw it all season long. The guy is a powerful runner. Which you usually don't see from the quarterback position. You don't see guys that are just, running through tackles, breaking tackles left and right, just getting it done with their legs. Usually when you see a quarterback, they're more elusive. Well, that's not the case with Jalen Hurts. He's a power runner, which is it's a little bit refreshing if you ask me. It's awesome to see because you just don't see it that much. Now, I know a lot of people will be like, yeah, you really want your quarterback running like that in the National Football League. So I can totally understand why some people would be like, I don't like it. At some point, he has to get it done with his arm. Jalen Hurts isn't doing a good enough job of throwing the football. I can understand why people would feel that way. Personally, I disagree. I think you got to be true to you. I don't think there's anything wrong with Jalen Hurts' game. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Let him be himself. Let him be the Jalen Hurts that's got him to this point because everything seems to be working for Jalen Hurts. I remember he was a runner at Alabama, and I was concerned. Can this guy do a good enough job throwing the football? Remember, he lost the job to Tua Tagovailoa. So, yeah, there were concerns at Alabama when Jalen Hurts had to leave for Oklahoma. Fast forward to now, I'm more sold on Jalen Hurts than I am on Tua. That's just the reality of the situation. It's funny how things can change. You have to give Jalen Hurts all the credit in the world for the development he's made. There's been a lot of growth when it comes to his game. Sure, he's doing a lot of it with his running abilities, but it's not easy to run through NFL linebackers. It's not easy to run through an NFL defensive end. Jalen Hurts can do those things because he is such a strong player, because he does have a gift when it comes to being able to talk the football and get a little something extra. This isn't, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, elusiveness type of deal. It's more of a power runner. Imagine like someone that's like a bulldozer running downhill, running through tackles. That's kind of what Jalen Hurts does. That's why he's so good in those QB sneak situations. I mean, how many times did he get the job done on that QB sneak where he's getting pushed in the back by the guys behind him, sneaks for 1 or 2 yards. He just gets low, keeps those legs churning, and always seems to pick up the first down. It's almost unstoppable. It's almost unfair. That's how good he was in those QB sneak situations. Great down by the goal line, breaks a lot of tackles, always seems to get in the end zone. It's rare that you see a quarterback that has an after contact yardage measurement. A lot of times we measure running backs by what they do after the initial contact, how many yards they can pick up after the first hit. Now we have a quarterback that is playing like that. It just shows how many different styles there are in the NFL. There's so many different ways to skin a cat. There's so many different ways to get the job done. Jalen Hurts does it his own way. I don't have a problem with it. Let Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts. Don't change him in any way. He's got to do it his way. He's got to do it the way he's always done it. And if I'm the Eagles, I'm not critiquing him in any way. Not after what he just did, after he just carried that team all the way to the Super Bowl. Remember when Gardner Minshew got in there and it wasn't the same? Jalen Hurts is one of the focal points for this team. I know the defensive line was really good there for the Eagles too. But you can't change Jalen Hurts in any way. Just step back, watch, let him do his thing and be amazed, because he's going to put on a show for you. He's going to make the Eagles fun to root for. That was certainly the case this past year. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, no, I'm not changing Jalen Hurts in any way. Like I said, I can understand if a lot of people disagree with me on this one. That's your quarterback. You got to protect him. I hear you. I just don't know if that's the case, because if you change Jalen Hurts and you take away all those touchdowns and you take away the fact that he's a lightning rod for that football team, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. You just hope that he doesn't get hurt. Up until this point, he's been good enough to avoid injuries, or healthy enough to avoid injuries, I guess you can say. So, like I said, I'm not changing anything when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Just step back, watch him do his thing, and be amazed. The next story we have is the Deebo Samuel story. So Deebo Samuel put up huge numbers for the 49ers 2 seasons ago. He demands a trade request. Then he comes back this past year and has a mediocre season. I think he only had like 2 touchdowns. Just was not the same player that he was at all 2 years ago with the 49ers. How do you guys feel about this one? Do you think the 49ers should have traded Deebo Samuel and sold high? Because remember, he was the best player in the NFL basically 2 years ago. Had all the momentum on his side. Everybody was rooting for him. He was one of the biggest stories in the NFL. Well, fast forward to now, and he kind of came crashing back to earth, so to say. And now his trade value has evaporated. It's nowhere near what they could have got if they would have traded him 2 years ago. Now, I know what 49ers fans are going to say. We need this guy going in the future. We want to win a Super Bowl. If we're going to win a Super Bowl, then Deebo Samuel has to be there. Well, you got to think about the assets that you would have got back for him if you would have sold high on him 2 years ago and got all these big-time players for him. Because now the value of Deebo Samuel has diminished quite a bit because he had such a mediocre season. It's a tough situation. It's a tough business. Sometimes tough decisions have to be made. Sometimes you have to pull Bill Belichick and trade Chandler Jones when he's balling out still and still has his best football in front of him, because that's going to lead to winning some Super Bowls. The 49ers chose to stick with Deebo Samuel. He came crashing back to earth. Wasn't the same player that he was 2 years ago. I don't think they did a good enough job of giving him the handoffs that he got 2 years ago. Remember, he wanted to be more of a wide receiver and less of a running back. But that didn't help Deebo Samuel's value. It didn't help the 49ers as much as it would have if he would have played more running back and took more handoffs out of the backfield. Look, it's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. You have to do what these players are best at. Deebo Samuel is a great running back. He's great when you hand him the football and let him run the ball downhill and run through some people, very similar to what Jalen Hurts does. So it's a tough situation. The 49ers stay put. It doesn't really go their way. Deebo Samuel has a big drop-off when it comes to his production. Now, there is some truth to what the 49ers fans would say. They do need him to win, but, if they could have got a couple first-round picks for Deebo Samuel a year ago, they gave up all those first-round picks to get Trey Lance. It would have been nice to get some of those picks back. Couple first-round picks, you're right back in the hunt. That wasn't the case. Deebo Samuel's still there. It's a tough situation. Like I said, sometimes tough choices have to be made in the National Football League. Sometimes you have to trade a great player just because it's going to set you up for something even better. Look at the Herschel Walker trade. The Cowboys trade Herschel Walker to the Vikings, and what's it do for the Cowboys? I think we all know what it did for the Cowboys after that trade took place. So sometimes trading a great player is actually a smart thing because you get so much back for that player that it sets your team up for years to come. The 49ers had an opportunity to do that with Deebo Samuel. Everybody was against it. I asked all last year or 2 years ago, I asked all 2 years ago, excuse me, if the 49ers should sell high and trade Deebo Samuel. Everybody was against it. Nobody wanted to trade Deebo Samuel. Everybody wanted to keep him. They thought he was too valuable to give up. Well, look what happens sometimes. Sometimes a great player, has a regression, doesn't get the targets that he used to get, doesn't have the receptions, the yards, or the touchdowns, completely falls off a cliff. I'm not going to say Deebo Samuel is a one-hit wonder because he's way too talented to be a one-hit wonder. It doesn't matter, though. The production wasn't there. That certainly hurt the 49ers. It's something the 49ers have to be conscious of because what are they getting now? Because if Deebo Samuel has another bad year, obviously you don't just get rid of him because he's a piece of an even bigger puzzle. At the same time, you kind of are kicking yourself because it's like, man, this guy was electric. He was electrifying. We could have traded him for so much. We might have been able to get a couple picks and a player for him. That's certainly not the case now. His value took a dive. It's a tough situation for the 49ers. If they win a Super Bowl, though, then they're justified in their decision. I guess that's the biggest thing on the horizon. Can the 49ers win a Super Bowl? We know they're going to be very, very close this year. They loaded up this offseason. Hargrave was a big pickup on the defensive side of the ball. Having Deebo Samuel there does help in the long run if he can get back to what he once was. So not all hope is lost yet, but it's a situation we have to monitor because what's Deebo Samuel going to do going from here? Can he get back to being the real Deebo Samuel that is on a different level, on top of the NFL, looking down on everybody else? Because that's what he was 2 years ago. There's no denying that. That's how good Deebo Samuel was as what they call him, a wide back, wide receiver / running back hybrid type player that just was able to do anything the 49ers asked of him. Really, that's all I got on this latest episode of the Cross the Mill Show. Sign up for $1 per month if you want to support all the latest pro football news and content. We're kind of like an independent journalist, so every little bit helps us in keeping these stories going. For $12 a year, you can get all the latest news and content. Go and sign up in the episode description box. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm John Kuzma. I'm signing off.